So we as a mayor, obviously, that's of great concern to us here.
Yes.
And we're looking at, is there an estimate that we look at there? Are they talking about 5% local aid cuts, 10% local aid cuts, or they'll get to it when they get to it?
Well, we'll see. I mean, the governor, of course, is only the first step in the process, then the House in April, the Senate in May. I have used an estimate because of the, I sort of made an initial estimate, possibly 10%, but then given the improved revenue picture and other items, my estimate now is 5% reduction. I don't know if the governor's going to try to come in a little bit better than that, meaning 3 or 4%. In the end, I think it'll be around 5, but of course, depends for individual community how they get their aid. So
yes.
Some are going to see almost no cuts. Others are going to see a 10% cut.
Right. Well, let's talk a little bit about in an era of declining revenues for municipalities, something that I know that you've been a bulldog on.
Yes.
Let's talk about what I want to talk about: municipal health care reform.
I as well.
Yeah, absolutely, and a leading voice, obviously, in the attempt to change the way we deal with healthcare at the municipal level. Let's talk about that. I mean, right now, you've advocated for what we call municipal healthcare plan design.
Right.
What is municipal healthcare plan design?
Sure. Think of it this way. If you're running a business and you see your healthcare costs exploding, you say, how can we do this? How can we contain the rate of growth of costs? So you go from $5 copay, maybe over time to $10, $15, $20 copay. You introduce different kind of plans, maybe lower cost plans. You try to get employees more involved so that they have more skin in the game and they make better decisions, all of which are designed to slow the rate of growth of healthcare costs. Nobody's talking about cutting healthcare costs, but slowing the rate of growth. The mayors, selectmen, local officials in this state are handcuffed because they have to go through, as you well know, collective bargaining in order to make the smallest change from, say, a $5 to $10 copay. Right. Now, it's a double standard here. At the state level, the Group Insurance Commission, which handles health care for employees and retirees, doesn't have to go through collective bargaining. And they make changes. It's still a very generous plan, but they do it outside collective bargaining. So the proposal is simple. Give the mayors of the state and other local officials the same powers to design change health plans, like copays and deductibles, that the state has and virtually everybody else has. Preserve a good plan, make sure it's at least on a par with the state plan. So we're not talking about a race to the bottom, but what we're simply trying to do is lower the rate of growth of healthcare costs in communities around the state in order to save the jobs of teachers, police, fire, librarians, public works, and so forth.
It's a question that we're going to come back to on the other side of this break because we have to talk a little bit more about this healthcare reform. I know that the speaker has indicated maybe a change of heart on his part, but we'll talk about that when we come back on the other side of this break. Stay tuned. We'll have Michael Widmer back very shortly.
Welcome home, man.
Welcome back to the Mayor's Corner with Michael Widmer from the Massachusetts Taxpayers Foundation. Michael, we were talking about municipal health care. You gave a great explanation of what plan design is. When dealing with it myself at the local level, I know that even city councilors sometimes get confused about the difference between plan design, forced entry into the GIC, yes. Some combination thereof. Let's talk about the GIC. The governor, a couple of years back, filed legislation, and it was passed, I believe, that would allow municipal entry into the GIC with a 70% weighted vote of the municipal unions. What's wrong with that?
Well, the reality is it's still got collective bargaining as the center to it, and in order to achieve that kind of thing, clearly the community, the mayors, the elected officials have to give up something. And the point of this is to try to adjust the health plan to save dollars, save jobs of the union members, and you have to get it outside of collective bargaining. And so what we've seen is a few communities, not very many, I think it's around 20, have gone into the Group Insurance Commission. Usually they only get the agreement of the unions to do that when the community is basically hemorrhaging and in deep, deep fiscal trouble. Right. And so it's an act of desperation all around. What we're saying, and I think, and you as well, is, look, let's just give municipal officials the same powers that the Group Insurance Commission has outside of collective bargaining. If the community wants to go into the Group Insurance Commission, then that would be an option. But we shouldn't require it, and we shouldn't have to do it through collective bargaining. Right. Because it's just not been successful. I mean, the last year, no community, the last year, not one in the state has chosen to go into the Group Insurance Commission.
That's telling right there, and
Absolutely.
I think that shows you that at least the way it's written today, it just hasn't worked. Good intention, but it hasn't worked. Let's talk a little bit about the GIC and what we know the cost differences are between the GIC and aggregate local plans, yes. if you would. What is that difference? Is it accurate to say that the GIC in 10 years has grown at about half the rate of medical inflation?
Almost exactly that. The numbers we've just put together in the last day, so you wouldn't have seen these, but updated numbers would show that the GIC has grown about 6% a year over the last decade, and municipalities statewide between 10 and 11. So it is almost double. So the point is, yes, as medical inflation at the GIC is still growing, 6% still would put pressure on municipalities because Prop 2.5 is 2.5, of course. But 6 is a lot better than 10 or 11. And when you think about that each year, the compounding effect of that is enormous. So we've run the numbers and said statewide, if the mayors and selectmen had plan design in year 1, still preserving a generous plan, statewide taxpayers would save $100 million. In reality, that means $100 million saved for teachers, police, and fire across this Commonwealth. And the $100 million grows exponentially over the next decade. So you're talking about immediate, huge savings that preserves basic services for cities and towns.
Well, I know that you've been an advocate for it, and the mayors as well. We haven't made a lot of political progress on Beacon Hill, obviously, but and it's going to come, in my opinion, but a huge, well, at least a good start. You saw what the speaker said in his address. What about that? What are you hearing? Give us some inside scoop on this. What are we talking about here?
What I think is going to happen, something's going to happen in 2011 because the pressure around this issue is so great, one, politically, but more importantly, substantively, when healthcare dollars are eating up teachers, police, and fire, so to speak. I mean, in terms of costing jobs in municipalities across this state, it's an urgent issue. So something will happen in 2011. It may be good, it may not be. My concern is that in trying to compromise with the unions, and there's an effort, the governor is in a major effort to do this and make some announcement and compromise with the unions, that the cure will be worse than the disease, so to speak, and that there will be some contorted system that seeks to address this with the union participation and then going down this road, and if you can't reach agreement, then do this, and if you can't reach agreement, that. And so I'm worried about the solution being actually not being helpful.